That's very good. We are live. My name is Samuel Trapp. This is my recording of International Flavor. I have a great guest, Djordje Kuzmanovic. Did I say that last name right again?
It's perfect.
Perfect. Отлично. Very nice. And we have met with him before on a couple of different topics, and today I wanted to meet with him about a couple of different things. One is the recent BRICS announcements by Donald Trump and his posturing about 100% tariffs against anyone who attempts to de-dollarize. And there are a few subtopics to that. And maybe more interestingly for me, because I know very little about it, is the issues going on in France right now with your no confidence votes. I'll let you pick which one, but if you would introduce yourself, how we can stream you and follow you, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Djordje Kuzmanovic. I'm here in Paris, where we are in the middle of a political turmoil. It's very funny and somehow scary for the country because we are already in almost a debt crisis and in the middle of a recession, plus a big geopolitical issue with Ukraine. We are in a stage of very bad political situation since our president revoked our parliament, and we had elections, but we have no real majority. We have three political blocs fighting one each other, no majority. So we just had a very weak government that lasted 3 months. I'm saying lasted because it's still on, but right now, since 2 minutes started the talk in our Congress, l'Assemblée nationale, about his destitution and the revocation of the government by the parliament. And our information that we have right now is saying that it's going on. So in 3 hours, we will have no more government in France.
Yeah. I read a little bit about that, and I really want to, but I want you to lay the framework, but I actually wanted to sound like I had some important questions to ask, but I'd rather you just tell us the big issues.
Yeah, I wanted, so I am one of the head of a new media in France called Fréquence Populaire, popular frequency, I don't know. And we started a few months ago, and we covered especially the Kazan summit, the BRICS summit in Kazan, where I had the chance to meet you, Samuel. Those were very nice.
Yes.
One of the good things of that summit. And we just came back last week from Rio de Janeiro. We've been at the social G20 and then the G20. Plus, we did a lot of things in Brazil. And well, we have a YouTube channel that reached the 55,000 people are connecting, and well, it's we are going ahead, so we are happy. Voila. And the situation in France is completely chaotic. But we still have people here who do want to go to war with Russia, which is quite funny because we have a big debt. We have no government. Well, in 3 hours we'll have no government. We do not have munitions for our army. No shelves. So that's kind of funny.
Well, and it seems like that's what everybody is wanting to do in the EU, and especially before Trump gets into office, everybody is posturing right now. Everybody is creating more problems instead of less, so that they kind of tie his hands, is kind of the way I see it. Because if they're already in a war, it's different than if we're just on the brink of war, because he could still stop it. It appears to me from the outside that people, current leaders, including Joe Biden, are doing everything they can do to make sure that we pass the point of no return before Trump gets into office. And that way they can blame it all on him. You know, he was the guy there when war started, you know, something like that.
Plus, they're pushing hard on Georgia, not your Georgia state in the United States, but the country of Georgia.
Yes.
Which is between Russia, Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan. So
Yeah.
far from Europe. But we are ongoing kind of Maidan thing that happens in 2014 in Kiev, in Ukraine.
Yep.
We will see where this lead. But the EU is already in a bad economical situation in almost all countries of Europe. That is deeply involved in the war in Ukraine without having the capacity to be involved, is now pushing hard to do some new sanctions against Georgia, because Georgia didn't vote as they should have voted, and they have voted not to join EU right now. But so the EU is thinking about putting some new sanctions against Georgia, and I don't know, it's completely insane because if you look at the map, it's very far from Europe, even though people are Christian there, Orthodox Christian, but it's very far and they cannot help Ukraine. So I do not see how they will help a small country of less than 4 million people that is just under the huge Russia. So it's a bit absurd.
Right. They are pressuring Russia everywhere they can pressure them. There were reports that I read about, well, I was in Tbilisi in August. I was in Tbilisi, and there were signs, people were graffiti on the walls, you know, Russian go home. There were some pro-Russia as well. And the people were, you know, there's a region in a small sliver of land in between Georgia and Russia that is kind of autonomous, that has been in dispute for, you know, number of years. And so when you cross the border, you got to kind of cross it twice. And I did that between Georgia, whatever the city, whatever the region is called, and then into Russia to get into Vladikavkaz and go that way. And very interesting. I spoke with a lot of people. Their English, you know, they're pretty good. And there's a lot of people pro-Europe and a lot of people pro-Russia. And really, I think most of them just don't want to be involved in any of this. What are your thoughts on, did you hear I forget the leader's name, the elected person saying, nobody said we're not going to join the EC or the European Union, but we're just not going to do it right now. Did you hear that?
Yes, and it's well, those who won the election are the Georgian Dream. By the way, the Organization of Cooperation and Security in Europe, who monitored the election, said that the election was fair. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's run by a billionaire guy whose name is Bidzina Ivanishvili. And the thing is that Georgia has voted for a cooperation with European Union, which is fine for everybody in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Because the status of being cooperation with European Union allow them to continue to have relations with Russia. And okay, like 80% of their business is done with Russia.
Right.
But now there is this fights about joining EU. But the condition to join EU is to break all links with Russia and to start sanctioning Russia, which will be a complete crazy disaster for Georgian economy. And it's pretty much the same if we compare to what happened in Ukraine in 2014. Because at that moment, it was the same situation. Ukraine had cooperation with EU and could have done great being a bridge between EU and Russia. And most of its business was with Russia. But EU pushed to completely break with Russia, which was insane. And that's why the so-called pro-Russian candidate at that time said, yes, we will think a little bit more about joining, but still we want to continue to have good cooperation with EU. Same situation in Georgia. Nobody want to break anything with the EU. They're just saying, maybe it's not the best to start to have an economic fight with Russia that we cannot win. Once again, Georgia, it's a very small country that is between Iran, member of BRICS, Russia, member of BRICS, and Azerbaijan and Turkey, who were proposed to join the BRICS. And most of his businesses were with Russia. So what is asked to the people that are in power by EU is completely absurd in all means for Georgia. So that's why you have this situation, and that's why the Georgian Dream during this election used a lot of pictures of the real success of Georgian economy these last years, because the growth of their GDP is around 10% per year, is one of the highest in the world, because they have very good business with Russia. And they put picture of Georgia doing well, and people are happy in Georgia, with the picture of Ukraine destroyed. And saying maybe it was a little bit as a manipulation, but quite real. Guy, if we do it like did Ukraine, this is how it will end for us. So of course, most of the people, they decided not to be completely crushed by Russia. And you have, as you know, but maybe your listener do not know, we already had a war between Georgia and Russia in 2008. And at that time, the president was a guy named Saakashvili, who is in jail right now, who launched an attack to take back the autonomous regions, same situation like in Ukraine, in north of Georgia. And it was supported by United States, and it ended in a war. Thanks God. At that time, somehow, and especially at that time we were more free from the USA, our president, Nicolas Sarkozy, played a very important role in order to avoid further war. So it ended after few weeks, and that was it. And the two autonomous regions were attached to Russia.
Those are the ones that I went through when driving from Georgia to Russia, and they're still autonomous, but not, but you still, they still can control their own destiny, and Georgia does not want to be the next Maidan revolution funded by the West against Russia. And you say this is in 2008, and I remember it, but most Americans, maybe I shouldn't say that, but a lot of Americans are just waking up to the fact that this is kind of the pattern and practice of our government for the last 30 years. We go in, or maybe even longer. You could argue that this goes much longer. We go in and we create situations of unrest to get rid of bigger powers like Russia, like China, like anywhere. Pick it. That we seem to be doing it, and a lot of Americans are finally waking up to the fact that we shouldn't be dying or sending weapons or causing other people to die for so-called values that they may not believe in. You know what I mean? And so it's nice to talk to other people, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, because most Americans don't get to hear this from what I like to call normal people. You know what I mean? All we hear is the twisted thoughts of massive media sources, and not like you and I and a number of other people that I met at the BRICS conference. These are, I think there's a revolution in the way media is being passed out to people, and I think it's kind of worldwide. So I appreciate you. What else can you tell us about? Sorry about that. What else can you tell us about the Georgia situation?
Well, it's interesting to compare the Georgia situation with the Moldavian situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think many people know where is Moldavia, and well, Moldavia is a very, very thin country stretched between Romania and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the same absurd situation that came from the end of Soviet Union. So on the east, you have an autonomous region,
Transnistria.
with the capital Tiraspol, who wants to be Russian, and the other who wants to be independent. And it's the same thing. Let's go into EU. No, we don't want. We want to be autonomous, blah, blah, blah. But there you have an army of 1,500, 600 Russian soldiers already since 91. And one of the hugest ammunition depots in Europe.
Put there by America and NATO. Yeah.
It's very close. And they just had elections. And it's very funny because it was not completely legal neither there, but for EU it's okay because it's their candidate who won the elections. It was kind of funny because, for example, they had a referendum: will you join EU or not? And at 9 o'clock, with 92% of the votes that have been counted, 54% of Moldavian people voted no. But during the night, with the help of the voters, Moldavian abroad, especially in Europe, they reached the 50 point.
They're barely above. Yeah, I read
barely
that.
above. And let's join EU. And let's start sanctioning Russia. But it was funny because, for example, in Italy, you have 160,000 Moldavian for a country that is less than 3 million people. So migrants. And they managed to organize 59 voting places. But you have more than 300,000 in Russia, which is a little bit bigger country, and they put only 17 voting offices that closed earlier than in Italy, for example. So was not completely fair neither. And with a huge pressure of EU saying, yeah, guys, if you do not vote for EU, we will cut all the money we send to you. But if you vote as you should vote, which is join EU, then you will receive 1.8 billion euros for this or that. So, well, of course, the Russians also put their hands in this election. So I'm not saying they're not doing anything. But We can see that on one side the elections were not completely fair, but it's fine for EU because it's let's join EU and let's fight more. Let's start another crisis with Russia. And Georgia, who is trying to find a way. Once again, it's very important to understand that they're not against EU or USA. They're just people who are doing very well right now. Growing economy. Tbilisi is very nice, and lots of buildings are being built. And almost
it's beautiful there. It is beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Almost no unemployment. And they had the experience of a stupid war because it's like, I don't know, it's like really Honduras attack United States. It's stupid. It's too small with no weapons. And it will be insane to start first an economic war because their economy will be crushed. And not speaking of a real war. It's already catastrophic for Ukraine, which is a huge country with 40 million people in the beginning of the war. And Georgia is 10 times smaller in size and population. So, sorry. Something is blocked. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I do not understand people. Okay, why not? If you want to fight Russia somehow, do it. But don't do it with the life of other people.
Yes.
Because that will be, I can say you the future. I'm reading in the future. If a war starts with Georgia being so far from any supply line, I mean serious supply line, that will be a catastrophe. Tbilisi will be destroyed, and who wants that? Really, who wants that?
Well, I don't think Georgians really want that, and
most of them do not want that. So.
No, and from my limited contact with them in August, it's a beautiful country. They want to focus on their beautiful country, and tourism is growing a lot there, and they're seeing people coming from other places like me, coming and seeing their beautiful regions and so much history there. And fabulous people, very, very nice. They speak English, they speak Russian, they of course they speak Georgian as well, for the most part. But usually it's not hard to find people to communicate with. Their food is excellent, their wine is fantastic, and
food, wine, a good country, great Christian country also.
Very much so, and very much developing, and they're doing the right things, and they'd like to stay out of these. And so the pressure right now, in my argument, as to what's happening with Trump and with BRICS in specific, is these issues are all Biden related and Western NATO related, that they're trying to force these issues right now before Donald Trump gets into office in Georgia, in Moldova, in Transnistria specifically. I wouldn't be surprised if an attack came from Ukraine there. I read reports that right now a lot of the protesters in Georgia that you see on videos are from Ukraine. There's a good number of Ukrainians. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. That could be, straight up propaganda. But they also say that there's a large number in a completely different place in Syria, where they're having similar attacks on Russia at this time. And so the argument is that all these things are taking place to bring Russia to its knees, if at all possible, before Trump gets into office, or to increase the conflict before then. What are your thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I think, like you, I think they're trying to push hard all these neocons in the United States. They try to push hard to first somehow to have some achievement before Biden leave the office. Because
That's
right
what, he
now,
has no accomplishments, and maybe this would give him one.
At least they can say, "Oh, we success to mess a little bit with Russia there and there." Okay. But for the moment, they are about to have another defeat, huge, in Ukraine. That's it. Because bad strategy, stupid advices, and throwing one other country into a crazy war and leaving with the Chinook helicopter out of the U.S. embassy. We are almost about to leave that, so they don't want to have that situation before Trump's coming.
Right.
That's first. And the second point, it's also, I mean, well, as President Eisenhower said many years already, you have a country that's very much in the hand of the military-industrial complex, and more wars mean more sellings of weapons. So
yep, that's been my entire life, history. Yeah. And I served in the military. I first bumped up against that when I was serving in the military, and I absolutely am behind that concept. And I know that a lot of people internationally think that of the United States, and it's truly hard not to when you don't see much victory for us on the world stage, but you see a lot of destruction and a lot of war profiteering. And part of me very much worries about that with the coming of Donald Trump, especially with the selection of Marco Rubio, who is exactly one of those people on the neocon side. And I was a little bit surprised that he would be there.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to say, because it's not only Mark Rubio, it's also Kellogg, and the people who were appointed, many of them are, let's continue the same.
That's right.
They're neocons. Well, to be frank, I'm not so much surprised. Here I met a lot of debate and interviews, especially with the people who were strongly supporting Trump, who are very happy with the election, believing that Trump will come, they will stop all this stupidity around the world, and he will take care of first of America and stop warmongering wars everywhere. Mm-hmm. Well, the guy who were appointed are it's not a very good sign. I mean, for example, if he would have chosen Colonel McGregor, that would be something. That would be a very, very strong sign that we're stopping doing absurd thing around the world. We know that he wants to push hard with China. We know that he supports strongly Israel. That what's happened right now in Syria was also possible because Hezbollah is blocked fighting Israel, because Hezbollah was fighting against Daesh, against the jihadists on the Syrian soil. And also Donald Trump, I think is yesterday or 2 days ago, said, guys, I will protect dollar and I will fight this stupid BRICS thing. We will never let them be free and fight against dollar. So, as you know, things are launched with the BRICS clear. It's going on, and that's because the dollar was weaponized, especially by the Biden administration. So it would be not a very smart move from Donald Trump is if he continues to weaponize the dollar. And people like McGregor could have advised him something else to say. Yeah.
Well, I keep thinking I made that exact point on my show yesterday, that either you stay with the dollar and in return your gift is we sanction Russia and we sanction you if you don't sanction Russia, or you get 100% tariff. What sort of choice is that really? And will it give Donald Trump what he thinks, which is everybody will start wanting to use the dollar? I think it does the exact opposite. You give two horrible choices. You go, well, I'm not going to win no matter how you slice it, because the dollar is going to be a weapon against me, but I have to use it. And if I don't use it, you sanction me. Where's the good part for my country? Where does that come in?
Exactly. And I think that I've read papers from, McGregor, Scott Ritter, Jeffrey Sachs, John Mearsheimer, all together. There are different people that have different ideologies, but they say the same as you said, and what we are saying, and that he should have this. He should take another path, which is if he wants to make America great again, you should make the dollar great again. And to make the dollar great again, you have to make it attractive to the world, which is no sanctions anymore. Well, except those decided with everybody at the United Security Council, at the United Nations, open SWIFT to everybody.
Well, quit freezing people's bank accounts, their reserve accounts. Quit taking all their money. How are you going to keep them in if you freeze all their money unilaterally with no procedure? Just, I decide I'm freezing, and therefore you have to suffer. Of course, nobody's going to go for that, and they're going to look for alternatives.
And return the confiscated funds.
That's right. Return funds that you stole.
For the USA, it will be like a super push for the economy. And also for the debt of the USA. I do not understand why he's doing that. It will not make dollar great again. It will make just another economic war, and that's terrible. But imagine. I don't know. He's not yet president. But maybe you can rethink that. But imagine if a new president of the United States is saying, guys, we are a real free country. Our dollar is something you can assure all your actions and your businesses around the world. No sanctions. We will not freeze your money. You will be sure that you can take it back when you need it. Well, people will come and buy dollar right away. They will abandon yuan, yen, ruble, and everything. But if it continues that way, we will fight you guys because we are the biggest. We have the biggest balls and we're stronger, blah, blah, blah. Well, people will just abandon dollar.
Which is what they are doing. And that is what...
Biden. So I do not understand. What is very surprising for me. Okay, we'll see. I hope.
Well, it's not surprising for me anymore. It just seems like more of the same for me. And I've been watching quietly for a good number of years. I only started spouting off about this recently, but that doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention and wondering what we are doing. And it just seems constant on our side that we are always the ones trying to force. It's always force. That's never the carrot. It's never, hey, how about we offer you this? Like you just said, we offer you the safe haven of the dollar because the dollar is the strongest. But in return, you must sanction somebody. Well, nobody wants to. It's like John Kashader had that conversation again just recently. A reporter quizzed him about doing business with Russia. And he said, you are aware that the EC does more business with Russia than we do. But it's okay for them. The only people they complain about is us, that because we're paying with the ruble. We aren't using Western bank structure, or I'm sorry, with the rupee. We're not paying with the SWIFT bank system. We have our own arrangement with Russia directly. We don't need your payment. And those direct relationships, instead of going to the dollar, are far more often going to their home currency. And that's what's dangerous for the U.S.
Yeah.
And they all know they're supporting U.S. increases in debt over and over and over. And that increase in debt isn't good for anyone either.
Sure.
So, and the Western countries, including yours, by the way, ours is 10 times, ours is definitely the largest worldwide, but all the European countries, debt-wise, are pretty much in the same boat too. Of the top 10 debt countries, like 8 of them are Western.
It's far worse. I mean, if you look at a map of the world, there is only, maybe 3 countries that can do by itself completely. It's Russia, USA, and maybe Brazil, because it's huge, big enough population and a lot of resources, and the ability, even if sometimes you have morons running your country, it's still a great engineer country, a lot of scientific people. I mean, and you are far from everybody. You have 2 big ocean. I mean, well, USA, I think, will always do fine. Plus, you have the Canadian suburb, which is already USA somehow.
The Canadian suburb. I haven't heard that one yet. That's good. I like that.
That's how we see them. I mean, when
yes,
you go
yes.
to Toronto, it's like, it's bizarre. It's like,
I forget who said it the other day, but somebody said that the Canada. Oh, in fact, it was Trump allegedly said to Trudeau that you could just become the 51st state of America and you could be the governor.
Yeah,
allegedly. I don't know if that's true or not.
It was not very kind from him. He could have said the 51st, 52nd, 53rd, and 54th, because it's a huge country, Canada.
Yeah, he could have broken it into Quebec and Manitoba and the other places. He could have done that, but he didn't. He just one state and that's it. What have you heard about Trump winning?
Except Quebec, because Quebec is French. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Quebec could go back to you guys, right?
Yeah, or it's independent.
That's right, independent French state of Quebec. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
what have you heard about Trump wanting to buy Greenland from Denmark?
Yeah, I remember.
Supposedly that is coming back up again, and so there's a dispute between the U.S. and Russia also in the Arctic, and so in 2 places, one in Alaska where the U.S. recently claimed ownership not just of Alaska but the entire shelf, the underwater sea shelf, and they claim that is also American land, and that part is larger than the state of California. Yeah. And so Russia is trying to say, well, then, if that's the case, we'll go off the northern shelf and we'll knock you out of an area 5 times that size that used to be open waters, but now it's, we're alleging it's our territory. And so conflict is ramping up in the Arctic and in Alaska too, between the U.S. and Russia, and these are dangerous times, and it just and we keep on pushing, and it seems like no one has a sane approach to it except for normal people like us. And that's really sad to think that I'm the normal person, you know what I mean? That I think better than our people who should be thinking about this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's okay for a state to that's the position of the realist in the field of international relation, like Joel Mersheimer is always arguing. it's normal for a state to try to be stronger, more powerful, having more resources. It's fine. And by the way, the idea of buying lands, well, it's not so absurd if you look at the U.S. history. I mean, the 13th state, they bought from Napoleon a huge territory that was, I don't know, 5-6 times the size of the 13 first U.S. states.
That's right.
Louisiana and
Louisiana Territory.
yeah. And then they did it with Alaska from the Russians.
They bought Alaska from the Russians. That's right.
So yeah, why not Greenland?
Well, because Greenland only has a population of like 60,000. There's not a lot of people up there.
People who wants to be independent from Denmark. And by the way, it's a colonial state. I mean, why Denmark should control a territory that is, I don't know, 200, 500 times bigger than Denmark?
Yep.
With the population are native Indians. I mean, why? It's completely illogical. So, and you have, I think, already 2 military bases. I mean, the big ones.
Yep. Well, Russia has been politicking against it, of course, and because that gives the access to the U.S. to those same Arctic shelf territories that we were, that they've been fighting. But these are not small issues, and
no,
unfortunately,
not small issues. But as we witness it, you and me, in Kazan, the problem is not to have dispute, is not to have different interests. Look at China and India, and somehow through the BRICS talks process, they managed to find a solution between them regarding the border issue in the Himalaya and regarding their difference conflict, because these are two huge nations, and two super big economy. I mean, India is China 20 years ago, so be sure that in 20 years it will be an exploding economy. So, but they didn't start a war, and it's fine to have opposition between the United States and Russia, and I want this, you want that, but let's talk it through an organization like the BRICS, that should be, by the way, United Nations, if it worked, and find a peaceful solution. Let's not throw trillions of dollars in absurd wars, killing hundreds of thousands of young people, and making huge destructions. Let's do business. And that's possible. And that's what we've seen at the BRICS. And I think that this is the biggest strength of the BRICS. And we should stop acting like a Western bloc that cannot accept anything else than war. And that brings us back to the Georgian situation. That's crazy. I mean, after what happened in Ukraine, to continue to think like, oh, you are with us or without us, it's crazy. Let's be partners. And it's fine if you are partners with others. We find our ways. We try to make all business, and everybody will be fine. And Tbilisi will stay beautiful as Kyiv should, and stop wars. And the worst thing will be for the United States and for all other Western countries to continue to be like under the Biden administration and during the George W. Bush time or Clinton.
Well, during Trump too, though, really. And I'm not against him, but he's not innocent in the sanctions, and he didn't start any real wars, but he definitely plays the bully.
Yeah,
and
arm Ukraine, cut the deal with Iran. Well, a lot of stupid things as well.
Well, there's you hate to say it's kind of the American way, but it seems to me, and maybe I'm too passive to be an American, I don't know, or maybe too friendly to be an American, but it seems we're always antagonistic and always saying we're the biggest, baddest, best, and the strongest, And sometimes there's a basis for that, but other times, who cares? Can we work together? Because those small countries like Georgia are fantastic to visit and fantastic to, I want to be able to go to such countries and see things and not worry about the US having started a war there. I want to go visit Ukraine, but I'd never go now. And you know, I'd love to go to Syria, to Yemen, to these historic places with beautiful histories and conflict constantly. And I wish we could do something to end these conflicts. And I think the BRICS approach, I argue as part of my, it's not anti-Trump, but my Trump caution is, listen, the approach of the United States is what needs to change. We need to go back to cooperatively disarming. Like when I worked as a nuclear inspector and interpreter for the INF Treaty, the Nuclear Threshold Test Ban Treaty, we accomplished some things during those treaties, during those times in the late 80s and early 90s, well, the whole 90s, disarming the two biggest powers on the planet and working together to make the world a safer place. And in return, we got the US saying, well, we won, so guess you have to follow what we do now, and there's nobody to step up, and we better do it quick before China or India gets too big to stop us because Russia already lost. That's how it seems to me, and I don't know if that's really fair, but I think that our approach as America needs to change, and other people have advocated for it. I'm not saying anything new here. It's just more Americans need to start to think this way and not think that, well, heck, we're the biggest. We'll just join Trump and knock these jokers back into place, you know, accept the dollar, accept our military bases, accept NATO, and accept a UN that only we run, you know, that type of thing. And I think it's a mistake, and it has been for some time. And I very much liked what we jointly saw at BRICS, people attempting to work together. Do you remember the countries that came that had nothing to do with it? Those people from what country was that in Africa? You interviewed one of the guys.
The guys from Cameroon, from Guinea-Conakry.
Yes.
We had guys from also Senegal. Oh.
Mm-hmm. That are just exploring options because they don't like their chances in the UN. It's like, we don't get any attention in the UN, and even if we do, somebody can veto it, and BRICS isn't that way, you know. So people are definitely exploring a different world order. Would you see it that way?
Yeah, exactly. Same thing. And but regarding United States, well, I'm not American, obviously, but I had the chance to live in America, and it's a great country. I mean, and there is so many different Americans.
Absolutely.
You have. It's not because you have warmongers, these crazy, lunatic people who are on power since 1991 in the United States. You have other people, and you had a fantastic president. And more the time is passing, more I appreciate this president. It's John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Mm-hmm. And there is a great book that was written by Jeffrey Sachs. I invite you to read it. It's, those who are listening, it's To Move the World. And it's the John Fitzgerald Kennedy approach to find a way to have peace and to avoid complete mutual destruction. That was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's his position on Vietnam. And he was killed. And, well, we don't know exactly who killed him, but
Trump says he's going to release that information.
Yeah, it would be good. And it will be a good lesson for himself, because
that's what I think.
It's the deep, stupid state of people who wants to sell weapons. As already another great president said it, Eisenhower. I mean, so there is different type of America, and believe me, the rest of the world love that America. and not the warmongering people. Everybody hates them, and yeah. But you were also asking me a question about Europe, and I said to you, and we diverted. Say, at the end, USA is a big country with a lot of options, but that's not the case of Europe.
That's
We have
true.
big population, but our debt is insane, and we have a shrinking industry.
And the euro went down quite a bit
Yeah,
recently.
euro will go. I don't know what will happen after the the end of this government, but this will maybe crash euro. We'll see. And we have huge debts and no resources at all. But at all, nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
Did you hear about the cutoff or the alleged pipeline attack from through Ukraine? The pipeline, it just happened like literally in the last 24 hours. There was either a massive accident of some sort or an intentional pipeline attack that is attacking the pipeline between Germany, which it's the one that runs through Ukraine, splits into two right before you go to Russia, but it's distributing Russian oil through there. And allegedly that this pipeline was blowing up to cost 2 million barrels a day, and that there's some huge events going on with respect to that. And they suspect somebody blew it up, whether it was Russians, Ukrainians, whoever. But things are heating up over there, especially with relation to the provision of oil. And that's the point. So this pipeline goes through Ukraine for gas and oil, and Russia has kept it open, has allowed it to stay open to continue to supply. Like Hungary can't get any gas except that through that method. That's their only way to get it. And so they have left them going on, but there's been this big attack.
It's a guess, but I cannot see anybody else interested in doing that than the warmonger in Washington. I mean,
it wouldn't surprise me.
Ukraine let it open during almost 3 years of war. Russia let it open almost during 3 years of war. By the way, Ukraine is getting money from all the oil and gas that's passing there. Yeah,
that's right.
I know that there is a stupid, completely absurd idea that some Ukrainian commandos blew up the Nord Stream. So why
that was not Ukrainian commandos?
Yes, imagine commandos that going north of Europe to blow up Nord Stream, but that letting the pipes that are passing in their country continue to bring gas and oil from Russia. I mean,
yeah,
it's senseless. I mean, it's for a child, it's absurd. So okay, and who will pay? Who will suffer from that? Well, of course, Ukrainian won't get the money, because it will not pass through Ukraine anymore. But as you said, Hungary and Germany.
That's right.
Who's happy with that? The Russians are not happy with that because
the Russians are not happy. They get money from that.
They get money plus good relation with Hungary and potential relation with Russia. So it's like it sounds to me that's like the Nord Stream 2 thing attack. And it is happening at the same time where you have all this craziness around Georgia, Moldavia, Syria. Well, the job is finishing in 2 months, so let's fucked up everything everywhere.
That's right. That's right. And that's exactly how I see it. Biden has nothing left to lose anymore. And so he will create as much turmoil as he can going out. He went to Africa and announced, another $1 billion or something to Africa. And all the Americans are going, well, wait a minute. We had several hurricanes and we get, $750, and you're going to Africa and passing out $1 billion to the same old corrupt criminals that get it in Ukraine. You pick these people that get to make all this money, and Americans, meanwhile, you can't get anything to help you out. you know, but we'll send money all over the world. Then he will pardon his son, saying he never would and won't answer. And frankly, I expected that. I don't, you know, I'm not anti that. Of course, he's a father, you know he's going to do it. And him saying he wasn't going to, of course I knew he was going to do it.
Maybe you can answer me that question, because what was exactly pardon? Because if I understand, it's this detention of weapons, but this is completely secondary.
Well, there's a lot of discussion on that, but I used to practice law. I practiced law for a good number of years, and I haven't for the last 10. But when when a presidential pardon comes up, that pardon basically pardons. It takes for a period of time, or for their whole life, or for anything, and says, whatever he did before, we're giving him a clean slate, period. And that means for anywhere and for everything. But he specifically said for a period of the last 10 years or whatever it is, might have been. He went back to a set date. And so, you know, probably because the statute of limitations for most crimes, except murder or something like that, is 10 years. You know, they can't go back more than 10 years and charge you with something. So that's probably the reason he only went back for 10 years.
So yeah, it could include things that are not yet that we are not
discovered, things that you don't even know about.
I mean, all the implication of Hunter Biden in Ukraine, for example, in the gas companies, and
he'd be forgiven for those things because the president has forgiven him. Now, he might not be forgiven on the international stage if there was an international court that wanted to get him. I don't know the rules on that. And a presidential pardon wouldn't, like if someone arguing that Ukraine might want to charge him with something, and if he went to Ukraine and they picked him up, they could, I suppose. And the president's pardon wouldn't necessarily mean that he was forgiven there. But that's never going to happen because Ukraine is run by us anyway. And but pick a non-friendly state. Like if he did something in China, that wouldn't forgive him.
Even that is impossible, because USA is protecting strongly all its people.
That's right.
Yesterday was the 3rd of December.
Mm-hmm.
And 40 years ago, it was the hugest industrial catastrophe in world history, which was in India, Bhopal.
Mm-hmm.
You remember, it was Union Carbide. There was this disaster in the city of Bhopal.
Union Carbide, the company?
Yeah, that was bought after by Dow Chemical, because now it's Dow Chemical.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the hugest industrial catastrophe. They released by mistake. I will not enter deep in the reason, but they make big mistakes, and a lot of very poisonous gas was released, and it's about between 20 and 30,000 people who died. Since it's hundreds of thousands people get cancers, and it's huge catastrophe. And until now, well, Union Carbide pay less than 500 million, which is less than $300 per people
per person.
Per person. But the states of India attacked the states of United States. Attacked United States on the international level. They attacked Union Carbide, and nobody never get any sanction. Well, of course, the people that are sued in India, it would not be a very good idea for them to go to New Delhi, sure. But if you don't go to that country, well, it's okay.
Nothing's going to happen. You're protected everywhere else.
Hunter Biden will be fine, but it will.
But you know what it does do? I don't know if you're aware of this, but what it does do, this pardon means it could have been a mistake. I've heard quite a lot of talk on this in the last couple of days, and there were arguments that if he was called into Congress now, what he cannot do is refuse to testify, plead the fifth. Like we have something in America where you cannot be forced to incriminate yourself. Like say that you yourself were, committed a crime. So you can't be forced to say that. If a policeman comes along, he's got to have evidence outside of you, so another witness, forensic evidence, whatever it is, that he has to have to get you to talk or to get you a charge. But if you've been pardoned, then you don't have that right anymore, because self-incrimination doesn't matter. You can't, even if you do incriminate yourself, you've already been forgiven for the crime. So let's say that somebody wanted to prosecute Hunter Biden for using drugs, and the police arrested him and said, "We know you used drugs on this day. Tell us all about it." And he says, "No, I'm going to plead the fifth because that might say that I committed a crime, and you're not allowed to ask me if I committed a crime."
Yeah.
And they can say, "No, you've already been forgiven," and force him to talk. And that might implicate other people. So the argument is that now, if somebody wanted to implicate his father or his uncle or anybody else associated, that now he cannot remain quiet. He can be forced to answer and be in contempt if he doesn't answer, and that could lead to its own consequences. So there's a lot of arguments both ways on that. But the fact is, I fully anticipated that he would be pardoned. That Hunter Biden, he's going to be pardoned. It's his dad, and they've been making money off his dad's position for forever. What would make anybody think that his dad wasn't going to cut him loose of any criminal charges, as a last act of being president? Well, my son, leave him alone. You're not going to arrest him. I'm not so positive I wouldn't do differently, except he's been saying for years now, I wouldn't. If my son's guilty, he has to pay the consequences. Well, we all knew that was political BS too. That's not, he never meant that when he said it, and if he's a politician, of course he lies. And so anyway, that's my thoughts on that matter.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that many Americans and people in Europe will be discussed when we will all discover the nature of arrangement made by big corporation with the government in Kyiv.
Yep.
And
that money is all going somewhere, and it's not
yeah,
going to the front lines. And
but I'm also speaking of what was sold in Ukraine. I mean, most of the country was already sold.
I know.
I mean, Ukrainian are dying. Many died for BlackRock.
I know.
Well, if you fight for your country, it's one thing. But if you discover that you lost one leg and lost 10 of your friends in the trenches because it was to take back land that
you didn't even own as a country anymore.
Yeah, it's terrible. Huh?
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that I heard. Do you know who Margarita Simonyan is? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, I watched her the other day. She was on Solovyov, that show, and I like to watch it on Sundays because it's their political. It's propaganda, but I like to watch it. And she said that they're
pure hard Russian propaganda.
Yeah, at least I get to hear the Russian propaganda and the American propaganda and choose between it myself, And at least I've heard both sides, and I'm not only hearing the one side. Is the way I find the format very interesting as well, and how they format that show. And it's a 3-hour show. It's a lot of information that they're putting out. Well, anyway, she said, and I wish I could remember his name. I want to say Smedley. She said the guy's name was Smedley, and he was a person who fought in wars in the United States. And when he came back, he wrote a book, and he said he was all about, and I meant to look it up and I wrote it down, but I don't have it with me. But I believe his name was Smedley, and that he wrote a book, and she was talking all about this the other day, that the U.S. talked about these things and fighting for your country, and he was fighting for his country, and his brothers were doing this. And he said he was extremely, at the end, the thesis of the book is, and oh, my shame when I found out that I was only fighting for a corporation that makes money off of the death of men, and selling weapons here and there. And my shame when I discovered that most of our wars are not fought for defending our country. There was an analysis done by another person that said, of all the wars the United States has ever been involved in on their own soil, virtually all of them were for economic reasons and not patriotic reasons.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. It's like, we're taught, and I still am very patriotic. I love my country. I think my country, is still a fabulous country with a lot to offer the world. But when I think of being a patriot and wanting to die for my country, dying for my country is a heck of a lot different than dying or serving for the interests of somebody wanting to sell a bigger and better tank. You know what I mean? It's just...
I know what you mean. Have you heard of Anatole France?
I have not.
Anatole France is one of our great French writers, and is certainly one of the greatest writers of the period of the Third Republic. Is someone somewhere between 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. And of course, he was somehow witness of the great First World War. And he wrote this, we think we die for our country, but we die for industrialists.
Yep. And for those of us that are just, well, like me, just a normal person, that is somewhat depressing. It's not what you expect. You sit and you think, man, is that really what I want to die for? When I'm thinking about, is that really what I want to send my son to fight somewhere? It certainly makes me understand.
I lost one leg in Fallujah fighting for Halliburton.
Yes. And yeah, that's right. Take a selfie, here's my selfie from Fallujah with only one leg. It's unfortunate. There used to be a saying when
to be clear, I'm not at all laughing about veterans. I mean,
of course not.
Myself,
no.
I was soldier, officer in the French army.
Me too.
Yeah, you too. I served in Afghanistan under NATO, and most of the people I've met there, including, of course, Americans, are people that are entering in the army because they want to serve the country. They are very good people. They serve the country and they believe in what they're doing, most of them. And so we're not making laugh of them.
No, of course not. No.
It's terrible when you use the faith of people to make them do something that is completely absurd regarding their own interest. That's the shame, not being a soldier.
Well, definitely not. And being a soldier is one of the proudest periods of my life for me, for what I did. No, I didn't go to war. I served as a diplomat. I went to Moldova for a period of 3 months, maybe 4, that I was over there after the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I was really starting to get suspicious, even then, of U.S. aid for international development and the State Department connections and buying of this government in sort of an anti-Russian manner. And there were just a few things that just really turned me off about those things right after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But who was I? I mean, I'm nobody. I'm just an interpreter over there. And I was like, maybe I don't know what our bosses know. You know, I'm patriotic and I want to believe the right thing. But here I am, fast forward 20, 25 years later, and it's sitting there going, you know, if you were smarter, if I was smarter, I'd have figured this out 20 years ago instead of now. And it's people need to think more before they instantly jump on board with the next war project of the American military, Western military industrial complex.
Hey, look at. I'll have to go soon, but right now from the French Parliament, it's fantastic.
What
right
happened?
now, as I told you, we have a possible destitution of the government. Yeah.
Yes.
And the reasons are that his weak government, no majority, is continuing the policy of a president, Emmanuel Macron, that nobody loves here anymore, except the very rich. We have a debt issue that's really catastrophic. Really, we will be in big problems. We are about to be in the middle of a huge financial crisis. We are already in a recession. So the unemployment of the young people is 20%. 1 out of 5 young people in France has no job. And among those who are working, one of 4, 25%, cannot have a decent life with the wage they're receiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of problems in this country, plus access to resources. Well, a lot of problems. But hear what they said in the French Parliament. They said, you know what? If you dismiss this government, this will stop the support to Ukraine. That's crazy. It has nothing to do with that, but they're using the war in Ukraine to save their asses. It's.
You think it's going to work?
No, I don't think so.
Well, you know, everybody seems to be jumping on that bandwagon. Well, what about Ukraine and keeping their borders? Well, what about borders around the world that we keep invading ourselves? You know what I mean? It's. I wish you the best there. I want to give you a chance to tell us before we end how to find you. Anything you want to say about your show and things that you do?
So, well, most of our videos are in French, but we did a lot of interviews also in English, especially at the G20 summit.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be interested. People are listening. We had geopoliticians for England, geopoliticians. We have people from China, from Brazil, that we interviewed in English. So you couldn't find it interesting. It's I don't know how you can advertise it, but soon we will have a show in English. Yeah.
Oh.
So our channel is Fréquence Populaire. Do we have a chat here? Yeah.
There is, but it doesn't look like it was. I don't know if it was turned off or what. But
no, that you have the connection. Yes, that's the link. So
I will put that link below.
If you can put that link, so that's our channel on YouTube. And if you want, you can also find us on Telegram. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the link
is that the link? That the right one going below?
Yeah. The second one is the Telegram link. Yeah. The first one is YouTube. So the second one is Telegram.
Well, I can only do one at a time. So the one scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now that's your channel.
That's
yes.
The important one. So you can, if it's like always, you can come have a look, like it, and of course you can subscribe. It's free and it helps us a lot. And you have videos in English with people speaking English. So
Yep, I
and
listened to some of those when you were at the G20, and
yeah,
you were hard to get during those times, definitely. But I appreciate you chatting with me today, and I
okay.
appreciate your time,
Thank you,
most
Samuel.
definitely. Yep. And I'm gonna finish by saying that you can listen to me at damradio.com. I will be playing this interview in its entirety on the next show. And you can follow my channel on YouTube, which is at Samuel Trapp, and you can find me there. So
By the way, if you want, this evening, as I told you, I can join you briefly on your damn show at 11. It will be 11
that'll be
p.m.
11 your time, yeah.
But then we will know if we do not have any more government. So it could be funny for you if you want.
Oh, okay. Well, I might just have I've been trying to get the technology to work where I can do both video and audio at the same time, and yesterday was a disaster. And
Well, audio is fine.
okay, yeah,
Nobody needs
we
to
might have to
see
figure
my
that
ugly
out.
face, so it's okay.
But that would be through your. I might give you a call on your WhatsApp.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah, and because then it's linked into the system, and we might be able to do that. Maybe I'll do that at that time. Okay.
Sure. Cool.
Okay. And if I do, but I don't know what's going to happen just yet. So I will. I don't want to make any promises on that. But I love having you on. I like talking to you. And
Thank you, Samuel. And let's have another chat.
Excellent.
In the
You have a
coming
very
days.
nice day, and thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye bye.